Alright, welcome to today's lesson on organizational structures. So organizing is basically the process of arranging our people and resources to work together to accomplish the goals that were set out during the planning stage. Okay? To do this, companies create what we call an organizational structure. This is a system of tasks and flow of work and communication channels that allow us to link together diverse individuals within the company and groups within the company. Okay? So when we're doing this, companies are trying to make sure that they arrange their workforce and resources in a way that allows them to best fit the strategy that they're trying to employ as a company. And while doing this, they should strive to do two things. Number one, they want to try and allocate differentiated tasks. They want to make sure that each individual employee in the company is not doing work that is duplicated by another employee in the company. Okay? And while they're doing this, they also want to coordinate performance results. They want to make sure that each of these employees are also all working towards the same goal and receiving the same results. It's a very difficult balance to maintain, right? Trying to make sure that individuals are working on tasks that aren't duplicated, but yet at the same time working together to achieve company goals. One of the things we need to realize is that organizations are getting bigger, and as they get bigger, they create a greater differentiation. This means that a company is going to be working on multiple products now instead of just one, or they're going to be working in multiple regions now instead of just one. This means that within the company we have an increased task specialization. So employees are going to be working on one individual product, or one individual aspect of a product, or one individual region. Right? This means that their attitudes, values, and beliefs are also going to differentiate as they focus on that specific area of specialization. It's important that when you're designing your organizational structure, you're keeping this in consideration to try and minimize the negative effects of having this differentiation in your company. And there are three traditional types of organizational structures that we see. The first is called functional, second is divisional, and the third one is called matrix. The functional structure is one that we're typically used to seeing in companies. This is where we group our employees based on the work units or the type of work that they are doing. So for example, we might have a marketing department which is in charge of all the advertising and brand imaging of our company. We have the engineering department that's involved in the design of our product and the creation of our product. We have the finance department, etc., etc. Okay? This works well for small organizations that produce one or two products or services, and it works well in a situation where we have very little change, okay, where we have a stable environment. And this is because any kind of change is going to be very slow to happen in this particular structure because we have to pass all the information up the food chain to the higher ups to make the decisions and then back down again. Okay? Some advantages of using this structure. Number one, it allows the economies of scale. Because everything becomes streamlined, it allows us to be more efficient in the way that we use our resources. Employee tasks are consistent with their expertise and training, right? They've been trained in marketing. They're marketing experts. They work in the marketing department. And this allows them to solve things very specifically, highly technical problems within their area of expertise because that's where they're trained. And again, we can provide in-depth training because we're going to try and train all of the marketing department on how to do marketing. This also leads to clear career paths within our company because they know that they're moving up the marketing chain until they become a VP and a senior VP and etc., etc. Some disadvantages of this are, number one, this structure creates a narrow view of our performance objectives. In other words, we're looking only, if I'm working in the marketing department, I'm only looking at what's going on in marketing. There's very little communication between departments or amongst departments looking at the overall company goals. I'm very focused on marketing or whatever department I'm in. We have an excessive upward referral of decisions. So when something needs to be decided, the low levels don't decide it, and they can't decide amongst their peers. They have to kick it up the food chain till the higher level management team can make the decisions. And this results in a much slower response to change as a company because all decisions have to be filtered up the stream, and then they have to come back down again before we can actually implement that change. The second type of structure we have is called a divisional structure. Now this is where we're going to group people who are in one of the various regions. So we might group people who are working together on the same product. So for example, you're going to work on the iPhone, you're going to work on the iTouch, you're going to work on the iMac, etc. Or we could group them based on the customers they're serving. So we're going to work on male fashion industry, female fashion industry, kids fashion, and so on. Or we're working on the same geographical region. So we have the Asia division, North America division, European division, and so on. Okay? This is a common used structure in complex organizations where we have a variety of things going on. So we need to try and keep people together who are working on the same grouping of information. Okay? Advantages of this is that we're more flexible in responding to change. Okay, because we're able to adapt to what's going on with specifically our product. We don't have to discuss this with other areas of the company. We have improved coordination because, again, all people within our division are all working on the same tasks, so we can work together with the marketing person and the design person and so on, because they're all working on the same area. Clear points of responsibility for the product and service delivery. Because we're working on that specific product as a group, we know that we're responsible for that creation and delivery of that product. We're able to have expertise focused on a specific customer or a specific product or a specific region, as opposed to only the marketing for that particular customer or the finance for that particular customer. And it's easier to restructure because we can just close down a division or open up a new division. There are some disadvantages to this as well. Number one, we're going to end up with a duplication of resources and efforts. Each division is going to have marketing people. Each division is going to have product producing people and finance people and so on. This can lead to increased costs, right? We have competition or poor coordination across divisions. So the Asian division might end up competing for resources or influence amongst the higher levels against the other divisions that they have, okay? And they don't communicate with each other. And then we also have an emphasis on your divisional goals at the expense of the overall organizational goals. The third type of structure we're looking at is called the matrix structure, which essentially combines both functional and divisional structures to gain the advantages of both with the hopes of minimizing the advantage of each of them. Okay, so in the matrix structure here, you have a particular working group that happens to report to project manager A. This could be the Asia division, or this could be a particular product they're producing, and then they also report to their individual functional department, which would be the manufacturing department. Right, so we have the manufacturing in the various departments this way, and we have the divisions going this way. Okay. Some advantages of this are that we have better interfunctional cooperation. We're cooperating both across marketing, right, to development and product and so on, because we're working as a divisional group still, but we also have that cooperation within our department as well. Okay. Increased flexibility in restructuring because you have more options of where to put people. Better customer service because you have multiple managers who understand what's going on with their specific teams. Right? Better performance accountability because you're accountable to both groups of management, and improved decision making because you have lots of expertise in that particular area working together. Some disadvantages. Number one, if every employee has two bosses, you can end up with power struggles and confusion as who I'm supposed to report to and what I'm supposed to do and where my priorities are. Team meetings can be very time consuming because you have a lot of them because you have to meet with multiple groups of people. Team loyalties, if I'm loyal to my team, I may lose focus on what the overall organizational goals are. And of course there's an increased cost because I have way more management than I had in the other types of divisions. Now unfortunately, this all worked in the past, but things are changing as we've talked to continuously in this course, right? Management today is leaning more towards empowering our lower level employees and increasing globalization. Because of this, we have to modify our traditional organizational structures, and we've created 3 current structural models: the team model, the network model, and one called Boundaryless. The team model is where we're constantly making teams and groupings of individuals that are not permanent. They change, right? They last for a fair amount of time, but they're not permanent like they are in the matrix. Okay, and they can be contributed to or composed of a variety of people from various types of backgrounds. So we might have some sales, some manufacturing in one team. Maybe we're going to have engineering, sales, manufacturing, human resources in another team, and so on. Okay. Some advantages of this are that it eliminates barriers between operating departments because we're going to have people constantly being put into various teams and moving around. We have improved morale because we have this cross-functional interaction. We're interacting with more people and we get to be loyal to our team and get to know each other and so on. And finally, we have an improved quality and speed of decision making. This is due to increased knowledge and expertise of that team that's making up that particular team. There's some disadvantages as well. We have conflicting loyalties among members. We might have, I'm going to focus on my particular team as opposed to another team, right? That I might be on 2 different teams, or my team versus the overall organization. And again, we're going to be having a lot of time spent in meetings. The second one was network structures. So in this case, we have a central core company that is linked through various relationships to contractors and outside suppliers of essential services. Essentially, I'm going to minimize what my actual company is. Very few people in my company, and everything else, all the important aspects are all going to be outsourced. And I just control that collaboration between those outsourced companies. Okay? We're going to use information technology to support those shifting alliances and contracts that I have with my outsourcing companies. It looks something like this. So here's my overall core, right? I'm working as a company who does mail order lawn and deck furniture. And I'm going to outsource the design of my furniture. When I get those designs, I outsource the manufacturing to another company. When I get my product, I'm going to outsource the distribution and warehousing to another company, and all of my accounting and finances is done by a fourth company. I may also have a strategic alliance set up with other furniture companies that we can use to work together to have our stuff go through some sort of mail catalog. Okay, so my actual company itself is very few employees, very few people, and I'm outsourcing the majority of the work to various other companies. Advantages is that this is very cost efficient. I don't have much cost because I don't have very many overhead, very many employees working directly for me. And this permits operations across great distances through the use of IT. Disadvantages, it could be some coordination control problems because we're having so much complexity in our networking, right? So if one area or one outsourcing company gets backed up, it's going to cause all sorts of issues amongst the other companies, and maybe they don't have time to do things at a certain time when we need them to do it, right? We may have loss of control over those activities and how they're done. And we may also have a lack of loyalty if we're not using the same contractors over and over again. They may choose to move their contracts somewhere else, which leaves us scrambling to try and fill them. The last organization structure is called the boundaryless organization. And this is much more modern, and it's where we focus on teamwork and communication in place of formal lines of authority. So no longer do I have department heads and VPs and so on. We're a mishmash of people who are all working together, making teams, forming new teams as needed. Okay? We're trying to break down the internal boundaries that exist in traditional companies. And as a result, we also have a fluid external outsourcing and alliance contract. So much like the previous networking one, we're going to make contracts with people, but they're going to be much more fluid and short term. Okay? The key requirements of this is that you have an absence of hierarchy. There is no management team here. We're all working together. The team members are all empowered to work together. To do this, you have to make sure you have an acceptance of impermanence. You're not constantly doing just marketing or just production. You're constantly doing whatever needs to be done as a company. Consider this to be similar to a small startup company, where if you're just starting up a company, you're doing all sorts of different tasks all the time as they come up and as they're needed. Same sort of thing here, but on a larger scale. So it looks kind of like this. Here's my company, and I have groupings of tasks that need to be done, and I'm going to make those groupings as they need and move around from different task to different task. Okay? So advantages of this, number one, it encourages creativity, quality, flexibility, efficiency amongst my employees. It increases the shared knowledge, so we're all going to making sure everyone's on the same page, has access to all the knowledge at all times. And it leverages the talents of all our employees. They're always working on things. We're trying to use them where they're best. Some disadvantages is that it's very difficult to overcome the natural tendency to look for authority figures and bosses and so on. It also lacks strong leadership and a common vision, because if one person wants to go one way, there's no one really there to tell them, no, you're doing this. Okay, which can lead to also coordination problems. A couple more things before we go. Number one, a couple of trends in the organizations today, the way we set up our structures. Number one is that we tend to have more short chains of command. We're getting rid of unnecessary levels of management, making them become more horizontal instead of vertical. Okay? This allows us to have a larger span of control. An individual manager is going to be responsible for a lot more things, which allows more people to be more empowered to do their work. Secondly, we've got more in delegation and empowerment, which is what I just sort of said before. We're going to be having more managers entrusting their work to others to make sure they do it properly and get it done. This means I'm assigning the responsibility to them to have it done. I'm giving them the authority to act and make sure that they can get things done. And it creates accountability for my employees, because if it's not done, it's on them, because they have the responsibility and the authority to make sure it's done. And finally, we have the reduced use of staff positions. Remember, we have line and staff. Line is directly responsible for the product of the company. Staff is supporting roles. And we have less of that in companies today. Be that specialized staff, which do things like human resources, or personal staff, for people who are working as assistant to positions. Most of those are getting eliminated. That's it. That's all we have time for today. We'll see you in class tomorrow, where we can practice what we've learned.